Good morning, Stonehill, and welcome. My name's Ashley, and I'm part of our children's ministry team. We're so glad you're here with us, and we would love for you to go onto our website, stonehill.church/connect, and fill out our digital connection card so we can know how to be praying for you. Also, if this is your first time watching with us, we'd love for you to fill out that card so we can send you a free gift, a coffee mug in the mail. Let's worship together.
Hey, good morning. We're glad that you're hanging out with us here at Stonehill Church. We want you to engage with us. We want you to sing along, so stand up. Come on. We're not going to hold back in our time of worship, so get up. Let's sing. Come on. Let's go. Come on, let's give God all the glory. He's deserving of our very best. Sing this together. Our God and firm foundation. Our God and firm foundation. Our rock, the only solid ground. Nations rise and fall. Kingdoms once strong, now shaken. We trust forever in your name. Whose name say? Name of Jesus. Who do you trust? Say, oh, we trust the name of Jesus. You are the only King forever. Almighty God, we lift you higher. You are the only King forever, forevermore. You are victorious. You are the only King forever. Almighty God, we lift you higher. You are the only King forever, forevermore. You are victorious. Let's go. Continue this morning in our time of worship. God, we give you glory. Lift our voices
Before I took a breath, when I doubted, Lord, remind me I'm wonderfully made. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay. And you make all things work together for my future and for my good. You make all things work together for your glory and for your name. There's a healing light just beyond the clouds. Though I've walked through fire, I see clearly now. I know nothing has been wasted, no failure, no mistake. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay. And you make all things work together for my future and for my good. You make all things work together for your glory and for your name. When I doubt it, Lord, remind me I'm wonderfully made. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay. And I know nothing has been wasted, no failure, no mistake. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay. And when I doubt it, Lord, remind me I'm wonderfully made. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay. And I know nothing has been wasted, no failure, no mistake. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay. And you make all things work together for my future and for my good. You make all things work together for your glory and for your name. You make all things work together for my future and for my good. You make all things work together for your glory and for your name. When I doubt it, Lord, remind me I'm wonderfully made. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay. And I know nothing has been wasted, no failure, no mistake. You're an artist and a potter. I'm the canvas and the clay.
Thanks for joining us in worship. Well, we're so excited because this week we get to announce that our Stonehill app is launched. This is a great way to watch our Sunday morning services as well as has access to our most updated Stonehill information. You can also give directly right on that app. So you can go onto the Google or Apple store to download it and just search Stonehill Church, Idaho, and look for our logo. One of our core values here at Stonehill, and my personal favorite, is that we would make Jesus visible by serving our community. And that means not just staying within the walls of our own building, but going out and seeking every opportunity to make his name known and glorify him by serving others. So this week, we're partnering with the Ada County Boys and Girls Club. This organization has been providing emergency child care during the COVID-19 crisis. If you're able, we would love for you to help us in providing for some of their urgent needs so they can continue to care for these kids. Some of their needs are cleaning supplies like disinfectant wipes or Lysol wipes, art supplies and craft supplies like construction paper, markers, crayons, and lastly, they need bulk food items to send home with the families, such as applesauce and peanut butter and granola bars. So we would love for you to drop any of those items off at our Stonehill offices this Thursday, May 7th from 4 to 7 p.m., where we'll have a contact list drop. And finally, we want to thank you for faithfully giving during this time. We know it can be hard, but because of you, we've been able to provide for many local ministries and families, as well as continue to help out our outreach partners and missionaries. So we want to encourage you to continue giving by opening up a separate tab and going to our website or our app and following our giving link. Thank you for worshiping God with your finances this morning. So let's watch together as we continue in our Unwavering series.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are in our third week of the series, Unwavering, and we really enjoyed having Keith Harrington here with us last week and did a great job. But today, we're going to be picking it back up in Romans chapter 5. And so if you want to turn there right now, if you have a Bible or if you have an app, we'd love for you to turn there. If you don't have a Bible, you can download a free Bible software off of YouVersion, and that would be awesome to follow along with us today. But we're going to be talking about two different teams. Team Adam versus Team Jesus. Team Adam versus Team Jesus. Now, I've been on a lot of teams in my life. I've been on a lot of teams that have won, and I've been on a lot of teams that have not done so great. A couple years ago, I was playing in a 4-man golf scramble here in the Treasure Valley with some other guys from Stonehill. It was a fundraiser for the Chrysalis House, and so we're out there just wanting to have a great time, and we get out there, we're golfing, we're having fun, and then we get done and we go to the clubhouse and they begin to ask us what our score was. And so we gave them the score. They put the score up on the scoreboard and it was embarrassing. We realized that we were about 20 strokes higher than everyone else. And what had happened was at the very beginning, they gave us this licorice rope and we thought it was a sweet treat, but what it ended up being was it was the ability to make shorter putts. And it was supposed to help us out on our score, but we didn't read the instructions and we didn't really follow along. So as they start calling out everyone's score and everyone's name, our team is kind of sitting back there kind of embarrassed because our score wasn't very good. And so they get to our team, and I think instead of calling us by our team name, which was Stonehill Church, I think they called us the typical men who never listen to instructions. And so we were guilty of that. So I remember walking out of the clubhouse and kind of doing the walk of shame. And I realized at some point that I would have to come clean as the representative of our church. And I felt like on that day that I was wavering all over the place when it came to my golf game. I did not have any confidence, and it was a rough day. Now, here's the thing. So many people, what they do when they come to the Lord, when they talk to God or they live their life, they struggle. And maybe you're watching right now and you're not surrendered to Jesus, and you're wondering, why in the world do I not have hope and peace? And why don't I have a plan for my life? Because you're disconnected from the creator of this world. Maybe you're watching today and you are a Christian, but for whatever reason, you're not experiencing the full joy of the Lord in your life because, quite frankly, maybe you are not realizing the full benefits you have being on Team Jesus. And so we're looking at Romans chapter 5 today. And Paul is going to kind of give us this confidence and this hope, remind us of what we have in Jesus. And so we start out in Romans chapter 5, verse 12, and Paul says this. He says, therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, in this way death came to all people, because all have sinned. What Paul is telling us here is that sin entered into the world through one man. Who was that man? That was Adam. That was Adam. And because Adam sinned, death came to all of us. And because of that, we all sin. We all have sinned. Now, I don't know if you're watching today, you might be a Star Wars fan. Star Wars is a great kind of a movie experience. But I've heard often say that Star Wars is a tale of two Skywalkers. You have Anakin Skywalker who was tempted by the force, the bad force, and he was taken away through his temptation. But he was followed up by his son, Luke Skywalker, who was tempted with the same things, but he was faithful to what he was supposed to do, and he was able to reverse the curse. George Lucas tells us that episodes 4 through 6 are really about the redemption of the first Skywalker by the second Skywalker. Now, if you're a lady, I know not all ladies love Star Wars, so if I just lost you, I'm sorry. I promise next week we'll do an illustration from Gilmore Girls, okay? But this really is a great illustration reminding us of what the Bible's talking about. That the second Adam redeemed the first Adam. And so as we begin talking about Romans chapter 5 here, Paul is talking about this theological concept, this doctrine called the original sin. Original sin, the basic idea is that Adam, who was the first man, the first human, chose to reject God's clear command not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And because of that choice, death descended upon all mankind. And so God regards Adam's choice as our choice, making us guilty as well. Now you might say, that's not fair. That's not fair because I wasn't there. I did not make that choice myself. How can I be responsible for something that I had no part in? Well, God, calling Adam our representative, much like the President of the United States is our representative. So as he does good things or bad things, it falls to us as well. And so God looks at Adam as our representative. And God's saying that he knew what Adam chose would be the same thing that we would choose as well. Now you might say, okay, I struggle with that because, again, I've never done anything wrong. I wouldn't have made that choice. But saying that would imply that you and I would know more than God. And if we think about this concept is really not a hard concept to grasp. I mean, even during this coronavirus, we struggle with the sleeve of Oreo cookies that are in our pantry. At least I know I do. And my wife comes up to me and says, hey, Doug, what happened to all of the bag of salt and vinegar chips that were in the pantry? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what happened with it. And we're tempted. We struggle. And food might not be your struggle, but something is. Something you struggle with. And you might still say, that's not fair. I didn't choose this. But the question I would have for all of us is, do you think that you're so good, that I'm so good, that we could resist from eating from a tree that promises God-like power and God-like knowledge? That would be difficult. You say, I don't know. Well, the question that I would have then for us is this: have we not ratified that decision time and time again? Has there ever been a time in your life where God asked you to do something, but you choose to do something else instead because you didn't want to do what God wanted you to do? Paul tells us that we were all born sinners. We're all born sinners. And if you don't believe me, have you ever been around a child before? I mean, we have these amazing kids and they're so cute and they're adorable and they're wonderful and they're fearfully made but they're little idolaters. I mean, that's really what we all are, right? I have 5 kids and I've never, ever had to send my kid to sin camp before, ever. I've never had to pay for them to go to a selfish seminar before, ever. They just come out that way, straight from their mom. Okay, that's how it works. But we're all like that. God created us for good, but we're all slanted and tainted, every single one of us. We're bent towards evil, and that causes problems. So we're halfway into this message, and you're like, Doug, you talked about confidence. You talked about not wavering. But to be honest, so far, what you're talking about is very depressing. You're talking about sin and how we all struggle. But here's what I would say to that, is that I don't think we can understand how good the good news is until we understand how bad it really is. And once we understand how bad it really is, we can begin to grasp how good the gospel is. And so Paul goes on, and he kind of changes the thought and the tone here. And he says in verse 15, he says, but. Now that's a big but. There's a lot of big buts in the Bible, but this is one of the biggest buts there is. He said, but the gift is not like the trespass. For if the many died by the trespass of the one man, how much more did God's grace and the gift that came by the grace of that one man, Jesus Christ, overflow to the many? See, God is a God of abundance, overflowing. He wants to bestow grace upon grace on us. And so what Adam is saying is Paul is saying there's two teams. We have Team Adam and Team Jesus. And really the gospel is this idea in this eternal game of Red Rover. I don't know if you guys remember this game, Red Rover. It's a game that we played when we were younger, and if you're younger than 20 years old, it's a game we used to play, and I think they played it until somebody's feelings got hurt, and so now they only played in sanctuary cities. But what we would do is we would have 2 different teams. And one team would look at the other team, and they would look for the wimpiest kid lined up on the other side. They would look for the kid that had the ankle splint and the inhaler, and then they would say something like this: Red Rover, send Sheldon on over. Now, if your name is Sheldon, the chances are pretty high that you have an inhaler. And so Sheldon, he would run over to the other side. And when he got to the other side, if he was able to break through the arms that were connected on the other team, then he would get to grab someone and bring it back over to his original team. But if he could not break the arms, he would stay there and it would be part of this new team. And with the gospel, there are 2 teams, Team Adam and Team Jesus. And God is calling out to all of us, calling us to be part of Jesus' team. His arms don't break, though, and so when we come running to him with all of our mess, he grabs us and holds us tightly with all the security that you could ever want and you could ever need. And so Paul goes on. Verse 15, he's comparing Team Adam and Team Adam's sin and Team Adam's trespasses to the perfect righteousness of Team Jesus. You see, on Team Adam, we earned the trespass. We did it. We have sinned. But in Team Jesus, we don't earn the free gift. It is freely given as a gift. In Team Adam, he goes on and he says this, that we are active participants in the trespass. That in our life right now, we are actively pursuing things that we shouldn't want all the time. But in Team Jesus, we're passive and we receive the free gift of God. We go on and we see in Team Adam that the trespass infects and affects every single one of us. None of us is safe from that except for the fact of Team Jesus, the free gift. It only applies to those who receive the cure, to those who receive the vaccine. So he goes on and he continues to compare these two teams. He says, nor can the gift of God be compared, he says, with the result of one man's sin. The judgment followed one sin and brought condemnation, but the gift followed many trespasses and brought justification. You see, what Jesus did for us was way bigger than Adam's sin. I mean, just for a moment, think about this. How long did it take for Adam to sin? A minute? 5 minutes? Maybe an entire day if he thought about it for a while? It didn't take very long. But how long did it take for Jesus' one act of righteousness? His entire life. 33 years. I mean, think about it. For 33 years, if Jesus would have had one bad thought, would have said one bad word, would have had one bad deed, the whole plan would have fallen apart. And what Paul is telling us is that Christ's obedience is 1 billion times greater than Adam's disobedience. And the good news for us is this, is that God's grace is greater than your sin. God's grace is greater than anyone's sin. He goes on in verse 17. He says, for if by the trespass of the one man, Adam, death reigned through that one man, how much more will those who receive God's abundant provision of grace and the gift of righteousness reign in the life through the one man, Jesus Christ? You see, when we receive a gift, it's not something that we earn. It's a gift. If we earned it, it would be a wage. We could say it like this, that salvation is received. It's never achieved. Salvation is given to us through God's grace, grace upon grace. And it's not just like any type of grace. It's an abundant type of grace. You see, God doesn't just serve grace on a side dish. No, God's grace comes in abundance. I kind of picture it and visualize it like this, that God is up in heaven with the angels. And he's talking to them. And God says to the angels, hey, you see that guy down there? His name is Doug. And the angels are like, yeah, that guy, man, he is messed up. He has got some problems. And God says, yeah, I know. But I want you to give him grace. Scoop it out and give it to him. And so they start scooping out grace. And God's like, that's not enough grace. You got to give him some more grace. And the angels are like, yeah, but that's a lot. He's like, I know. Keep it coming. But God, do you have any idea who this Doug guy is? He's really messed up. And then he's like, I know. Keep on piling it on. Keep it going. Don't be stingy on that grace. And they're like, but God, this grace is getting everywhere. And God says, I know the gospel is messy, but keep piling it on. And that's what God wants to give to everyone who would receive it, his grace. But that's just part of it. It's not just his grace that God wants to bestow on us. He goes on to verse 17, and he also says, in addition to that, the gift of righteousness. The gift of righteousness. You see, in church so often, we're guilty of just giving half of the gospel. Just part of the story. We talk about grace and we talk about forgiveness and how wonderful it is and so thankful for it. But it's not just about forgiveness in addition to grace. In addition to forgiveness, we also get the imputed righteousness of Jesus bestowed upon us. What does that mean? Well, that would kind of be like me being $1 trillion in debt. I mean, I have so much debt and I go to the bank. And I talked to the bank president and I said, hey, Mr. Bank President, I am so far in debt. I have $1 trillion. I mean, I can't even fathom of how I'm going to pay that out. I'm so far behind. And so the bank president says, that's okay. I'm going to forgive you of your debt. I'm going to have grace, and I'm going to have mercy on you. And he forgives me of my debt. Now, that would be amazing. That would be awesome. But really, it's only half of it, because what happens is that gets me back to zero, right? Which is better than I was. But what do I start to do? I have to begin to work for what is next. And so many people look at the gospel that way, that I get the grace, but once I get the grace, I need to start working so I can continue to keep my relationship with God and my salvation. But the full gospel is not that. The full gospel is this. I go to the bank and I tell the president I'm $1 trillion in debt, and he says, that's okay. I forgive you of all of your debt. You have grace, and I'm giving you mercy. In addition to that, in addition to me canceling your debt, I'm now going to give you the bank credit card, and everything that the bank has is now yours. See, that's what the full gospel is. You see, when you put your faith into what Jesus has done for you and I, not only will you receive grace, but you also are credited to you. The Greek word we talked about a couple weeks ago is this word logizomai. You're credited to you the perfection, the righteousness, the right standing of Jesus. It's put upon you. So no longer when God looks at you and I, he sees imperfection. When we receive the righteousness of Jesus on our life, we now receive the perfection of Jesus, and God looks to us as his perfect children. So, when you think, man, I screwed up so bad, either A, God would never love me, or B, you start working and you start doing. And you try to make God happy by your good works and your good deeds. But then all of a sudden you work hard for a while and you do really good, but then you fall and you're like, oh, and you feel guilt and you feel shame. So what do? You start working again. You start working hard, thinking that you're going to do well so that God approves of you, and you work really, really hard. But then you fall again, and you get to a point in your life that you say, I will never be good enough. And you would be right. Because none of us will ever be good enough for the perfection of God. But that's the good news. This is where the good news comes in. You will never be made right because of what you do. You do because you are already made right in Jesus. And that, when we understand it, when we get this concept, that should give every single one of us who puts our faith and put our trust in Jesus Christ and him alone, should make our confidence soar. Understanding that even in this life, we can receive joy, and understand that our eternal security is not wrapped up in what you and I do, but is wrapped up in an unwavering, unchanging, immutable God. And that should give us all hope. But the only way to receive that is by being on Team Jesus. And Paul tells us that we have the first Adam and we have the second Adam. The first Adam turned from the Father in the garden. The second Adam turned to the Father in a garden. The first Adam, sin brought us thorns. The second Adam wore a crown of thorns. The first Adam ate from a forbidden tree, thereby bringing upon a curse to this earth. The second Adam obeyed God and climbed up into a tree, a cursed tree, to take the curse of the human race on himself. So the question for you, the question for me today is, what team are you on? Some of you have already made a decision to be on Team Jesus. You put your faith and trust in Jesus. You've received his grace into your life, but sometimes we forget about that and we start to do things on our own, forgetting that we now live in the power of the Holy Spirit. And we can rely upon God. That should give you confidence as a Christian, as a believer. Maybe you're watching today and you've never put your faith and trust, you've never received the free gift of grace and the free gift of righteousness from what Jesus did on the cross, what are you waiting for? Maybe today is the day for you to put your faith and trust and be assured that when you die, whenever that is, that you will spend forever, starting from the moment you receive Christ, with eternal blessings. Maybe you're ready for that today. The Bible tells us in Romans chapter 10, verses 9, it says, if you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, which means that you believe that he really is who he says he is, that he is God, and he's the only one that could have done this. It says, you will be saved. If you've never done that before, are you ready? Why wait? Today, if you're ready to receive Christ in your life, you're ready to make Jesus as your Lord, you're ready to declare with your mouth him, you're ready to believe in your heart, you're ready to commit your life to him, here's what I'm going to encourage you to do right now. I'm going to encourage you to do it right where you're watching. You could pray to the Lord. You could pray something like this. If you want to do this, pray this with me right now. God, I know that I'm a sinner, as Paul's talking about, that we are all sinners, that we're all descendants of Adam, and because of what Adam did and because of what I do every single day, Lord, it puts a separation between me and you. But I also today believe that Jesus is who he says he is, and I put my faith and my trust into him, and I ask him to give me grace upon grace, and I ask and I receive the free gift of righteousness, of right standing. God, I commit my life to you. Lord, thank you so much in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. That is awesome. Today, if you prayed and you received Christ, and again, it's bigger than a prayer. It's more about a life commitment, believing in Jesus. If you did that, that's a celebration. That is so awesome. And Christians all over that are watching right now are celebrating with you. We would love to help you in your next steps. You see, that's just the very beginning. When you receive Christ into your life, that's the very beginning. And then we begin to walk and we begin to grow. We begin to receive his grace and his righteousness every single day. And so we would love to send you some information. So what we would love for you to do is go to our website. You can either go to our website, stonehill.church/connect, or just go to the very front page, or you can call this number or text this number and text the word connect, and we'll get you our digital connection card. And we would love for you to let us know that you prayed to receive Christ today. And we'll give you some information, a book about how to take your next steps. In addition to that, if you're watching today, you're already a Christ follower, we would love for you to fill out this card as well. Go there right now if you'd like to. Fill that card out. Let us know of any prayer requests you might have. We've been praying for our church, and we would love to pray for you. In addition to that, if you want to take some next steps, and as we begin thinking about meeting in the next few weeks, we're not sure how we're going to do that or when that's going to happen, but we're praying through that. We would love to connect you to Stonehill Church. So thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you have a blessed week, and we'll see you back next Sunday.